الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
رب العالمين الحمد لله عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته ومنتهى علمه وجميع ما شاء وخلق وذرأ وبرأ علم الغيب وشهادة الرحمن الرحيم الملك القدوس العزيز الحكيم أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له له الملك وله الحمد يحيي ويميت بيده الخير وهو على كل شيء قدير وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم أرسله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله ولو كره المشركون أما بعد فيقول الله تعالى في كتابه إنما المؤمنون إخوة فأصلحوا بين أخويكم واتقوا الله لعلكم ترحمون صدق الله العظيم الحمد لله Walhamdulillah, walhamdulillah, we praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We praise and we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us this deen and this perfect brotherhood. Perfect brotherhood. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Hujurat, Surah 49, He says, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةً. He says that only verily, the believers are brothers. And it's very interesting, the construction that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used in this verse, because Allah could have easily said, Inna al-mu'minuna ikhwa. Inna, we know, is like a tawqeed, it's a certifier, it gives emphasis. So it would have been sufficient. Allah could have said, verily, certainly, definitely, the believers are brothers. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't use the word inna. He used innama. And innama is like inna in the fact that it adds emphasis, but it also adds exclusion. And so this is why sometimes you see the verse translated as only the believers are brothers. Because when the speaker, in this case Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, uses the word innama, it's used to restrict the object to the subject. Only innama al-mu'minuna ikhwa. Brotherhood is restricted by belief, by iman. That's who your real brothers are. فَأَصْلِحُوا بَيْنَ أَخَوَيْكُمْ. Therefore, make peace or rectify the situation between contending brothers. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ, and fear Allah, لَعَلَّكُمْ تُرْحَمُونَ, so that you can achieve or attain Allah's mercy. In this verse, Allah's mercy, the opposite of Allah's wrath, Allah's favor, is connected directly with us rectifying, making peace, and making sure the relationships between the brothers and sisters are good. For aslihu bayna akhawaykum, make peace, rectify. That's a command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Followed by another command. Wattaqullah, fear Allah. In other words, when you bring about this peace, when you rectify the situations between the brothers and the sisters, make sure you don't use your own logic. Make sure you don't use some street logic. You don't use anything else. You use the guidelines set forth by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. That is how the brotherhood is rectified. لَعَلَكُمْ تُرْحَمُونَ, so that we or you can achieve or gain Allah's mercy. One thing I find interesting about this verse is a situation that took place during the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It happened as a result of the Battle of Badr. A lot of you know the name Mus'ab ibn Umayr. Mus'ab ibn Umayr, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he was one of the Sahaba, an early Muslim, and he was young. Most of the Sahaba were young. There's very few that were old. Most of them were young. And when I say young, I don't mean even young by our standards. I mean young, teenagers, preteens. I remember several years ago, one imam, he's probably close to his 70s, or at least somewhere in his 60s. And he said, no, alhamdulillah, it's good to have young imams like you around. I said, young imam? I'm about 40 years old. Young by our standards and young by the standards of the Sahaba is two different things. Young during their time meant 13, 14, 15. Usama ibn Zayd leading the army, 15, 16 years old, with Abu Bakr and Umar, all of them in the army. And he's leading the army at the death of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's young. In my mind, when I hear things, I always measure and connect it back with the first generation. So you have something to compare it to. You have a standard. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did say, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ لِمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُو اللَّهَ وَالْيَوْمَ الْآخِرَ وَذَكَرَ اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا. Indeed, you have in the Messenger of Allah an excellent, a beautiful pattern to follow for whoever hopes to meet Allah, remembers Allah much, and desires to see the last day. So the Prophet ﷺ is our model. He is our example. So when I hear it, when I see things, I measure it against that. And so if 40 is young and putting in work nowadays, we're about 30 years late. MashaAllah. Mus'ab ibn Umayr, young boy, teenager, accepted Islam in Mecca, still living under his parents' roof. And because of his Islam, his mother cut him off from the gravy train. When you read his biography, when you read his seerah, the Sahaba were very clear and vivid. He died at the Battle of Uhud. He didn't even see Islam get victorious. He died in the Battle of Uhud. They describe a young man who was showered with everything he wanted in this life from his parents. In this day and age, we would say his mother and his father spoiled him. He has everything. If he was living nowadays, he'd have an iPhone, a Note 6, Xbox. He would have every new pair of Jordans. He would have everything. The latest pair of skinny jeans. He would have it all. This is if he was living during this time. His parents gave him everything. And they describe him as having the nicest oils. He would smell good, and all the other little girls in Mecca wanted him. But as soon as he took Shahada, she cut him off. And it didn't stop him. At one point in time, his mother tied him up in the house to discourage him from being Muslim. This is not a grown man, this is a young boy, a teenager. And even his story in it is beautiful because it reminded me of Ali's story, the cousin of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When he saw the first Muslims, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his wife Khadija making salat, because he was living in their household. You know the Syria, you know he was living with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because his father wasn't doing that good financially, so the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and some other families took in some of Abu Talib's children. The Prophet ﷺ raised Ali because of that. He saw them making salah. He said, "What are you doing?" The Prophet ﷺ gave him dawah, explained to him what Islam was about and who they were worshiping. And he invited them to Islam. And he said, if you become Muslim or if you don't, just keep it between us. Even if you don't decide not to follow, don't tell anybody. And he said, "Oh, I have to consult Abu Talib. In other words, I have to tell my father." And then it is reported that the next day he came to the Prophet ﷺ and accepted Islam. But he said, in doing so, he said, I didn't consult Abu Talib regarding worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because Allah didn't consult Abu Talib to create me. This is the type of Iman that these Sahaba had. And Ali, depending on what some reports, he may have been 6 or 9 years old when that happened. So back to Mus'ab ibn Umair in Mecca. He's being cut off and persecuted from his own mother for being Muslim. I remind you, the Sharia wasn't in its completed form yet. There wasn't no ayats regarding jihad or qital, fighting, revealed. The Muslims were simply getting together, learning, rejecting those other ayats and those false gods, and making salat and getting firmly rooted in the ghaib, the unseen. And making salat. It wasn't any ayats regarding, staying away from riba, interest and usury. Something that will break down their economy, so the kuffar were afraid of that. Or fighting. None of that was, that portion of the Quran wasn't revealed yet. But even in those stages, the disbelievers saw the threat that Islam presented. Mus'ab ibn Umair is sent to Medina as the first ambassador in Islam. And he established Jummah prayer there, according to Ibn Ishaq and his Sirah. This is a young boy. And most of the Ansar, the people from Medina who took Shahada at his hand. Mus'ab ibn Umair. The Hijrah happens. The Prophet ﷺ is teaching the deen and giving dawah for 13 years in Mecca. The Hijrah happens. They move from Mecca to Medina. Not even 2 years in, the Battle of Badr jumps off. Guess who one of the prisoners is? Abu Aziz ibn Umayyah, the brother of Mus'ab ibn Umair, is one of the prisoners. Abu Aziz, who narrates the story, he later became Muslim. He narrates the story. And he says, they had me tied up and they were marching us and me, myself and the other prisoners back to Medina. And I saw my brother, and I saw him coming towards us. And I thought to myself, oh, this is good. My brother's going to intervene on my behalf. We got 2 brothers now, one Muslim, one non-Muslim. One was fighting for Allah, the other one was fighting against Allah. Mus'ab ibn Umair told the Ansar who was tying him up and bring him back to Mecca. He said, tie him up. Make sure you tie him good. In other words, if this was modern times, he might have had on handcuffs. And if Mus'ab ibn Umair were alive now, he might have said, you might want to put some shackles on him too, not just the cuffs. His mother got some money. His mother's rich. And so you'd be able to get a handsome ransom for him. Abu Aziz said, whoa, this is the type of advice you give regarding your brother? Mus'ab said, you're not my brother. My brothers are the one that's tying you up, bringing you back to Medina. Only the believers are brothers. The amazing thing about that is that he said that before that verse was revealed. إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةٌ. Only the believers are brothers. That verse hadn't been revealed yet. Surah Hujurat hadn't been revealed yet. So the Sahaba understood brotherhood even before it was mentioned in the Quran. The Sahaba understood brotherhood before the Battle of Badr. When the Muhajirin, those from Mecca, came to Medina, and the Prophet ﷺ established an official legal brotherhood between the Muhajirun and the Ansar. They understood it when they was in Mecca, before there was an Ansar, getting tortured for their belief. When they would learn having class, they didn't have a masjid. They couldn't go to the Haram. They couldn't go to the Kaaba. When they would have to learn in the Sahaba's house, Arkam, Darul Arkam, when they were learning, what I used to call a honeycomb hideout. When I was little, cereal commercials to come on, the kids used to go in this little treehouse or some hideout somewhere. It used to call it the honeycomb hideout. It was like the honeycomb hideout where the Sahabas learning. They understood the brotherhood back then. And many of the Sahaba who died early, and they would be questioned. They were like, now that we got you, don't you feel, would you rather Muhammad be in this situation about to be killed rather than yourself? And they would say things like, no, I wouldn't, I prefer to get killed rather than even the Prophet ﷺ even getting pricked by a thorn. Go do what you gotta do. This is the Iman of the Sahaba. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa afdalu salatu wa tamu taslim ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een wa radiyallahu ta'ala an sadat al-tabi'een wa ulama al-amalin wa a'immatul arabat al-mujtahideen wa muqalidinhum ila yawmiddin. Amma ba'd. You see this understanding of brotherhood going all throughout the early period of Islam. Before and after the revelation of this verse. Even the Muslims, some of them were Sahaba, some of them were under the leadership of Ikramah ibn Abi Jahl. Abu Jahl, you know, the big famous tyrant of Mecca that gave Muslims a lot of problems. He died in the Battle of Badr. His son later became Muslim, Ikramah. Ikramah is the same Ikramah that was with Khalid ibn Walid when they helped defeat the Muslims at Uhud. He was with him. He was a commander with him. He was fighting Islam very early on. Well, alhamdulillah, he became Muslim. And look how they think. Since he was put in command of a group of Muslims and fighting the Romans, he called them together. He said, listen, I don't know about you all, but I put in a lot of work and a lot of energy fighting against Islam and Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I feel like I gotta make up for all of that. How about we all make an oath that we die today fighting for Allah? We die right now, today. Like none of us go back home to our families. We die right now. And everybody that was with him gave that oath. And a lot of people don't know the front part of the story. We usually hear the back part of the story. When at this battle, there were some Muslims in the trenches, and they didn't have a lot of water. Then by the time some water came, the water came to them, and they were like, say, yeah, here's some water. He's like, no, pass it to my brother. He needs it more than me. And then he was like, no, pass it. My brother needs it more than me. And so it went around to everybody in the trench, and everybody preferred their brother over themselves. By the time it got back around to the first one, he had died. And the second one had died, etc. So all of them had died. That's the back part of the story. The front part of the story is that these brothers that were in the trenches, they were wounded. And they were the ones who actually didn't die. They made that oath they did not die. So they felt bad that they were still living. They didn't achieve martyrdom, even though they made an oath to die. And so when this situation came with the water, they passed it around. And as we said, that's the situation. SubhanAllah. These are the people that we follow. If we want to achieve or gain anything like what they had, we have to be the same way. Our brotherhood has to be tight. And we can't say, well, I'm not going to be a brother until he becomes a brother first. You know, why should I only be the only one that's acting like a brother? Let me, when everybody else start acting right, then I'll act right. No, we don't do that. Because on the day of judgment, when Allah asks you, He's not going to ask you about what everybody else is doing. He's going to ask you and me individually, what did we do? And we're not going to be able to use anybody else as an excuse. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Ahaqul Muslimi ala al-Muslim khams." The rights of a Muslim upon another Muslim are 5. And this is in Sahih Bukhari, narrated by Abu Hurairah, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. The rights of a Muslim on another Muslim are 5. The first one he said is Raddus Salam, return the greetings. In other words, when somebody gives you the greetings, when somebody says Assalamu alaikum, you at least say Wa alaikum assalam. You don't say hi, hello, what up? No, you say Wa alaikum assalam at least. Allah commands us in the Quran, in Surah Nisa, that when somebody gives you a greeting, you return it with one like it or one better. Hello is not an Islamic greeting. In fact, one of the person who later became a Sahaba actually came to Medina to kill the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and said, "Good morning." And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "My Lord has taught us something better than that. He taught us Assalamu alaikum." So Sabah Khayr, Sabah Nur, that's not our stuff. Our stuff is Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you. Even when we greet each other, it's a dua. May Allah give you peace. Assalamu alaikum, wa alaikum assalam. At least that. That's the right that every Muslim has on another Muslim. You don't ignore the person. You don't, first of all, say it so you can be heard. And make sure that when you respond so they can hear you. Don't let Shaitan come in there and say, did this brother return the greetings or not? Don't give Shaitan that room. Because Shaitan, he has us all in our heads building up a case against each other. Something happened, we don't get any clarification on it, so we think, well, the brother has a problem with me. So that's strike one. Then you come to the masjid, Assalamu alaikum. Wa alaikum salam. And the brother that you already got strike 1 against, you don't think he returned the greeting, so it's strike 2. And so it just builds up. And before you know it, you don't like the brother, he felt the vibe, he don't like you, and y'all really didn't have no problem. Y'all just didn't communicate. Raddu salam, return the greetings. A lot of times I think sisters have it worse than us. When sisters gather, sometimes they go into a place and some groups of sisters don't greet the other sisters. Like in some cities, sisters that cover their face, sometimes they don't greet the sisters that don't cover their face. Sisters that wear black don't greet the sisters that don't wear black. And all types of petty stuff like this. Or you go into a mixed gathering of Muslims and the African American coming and the Muslims that's not from Africa, they're from Egypt or from any other country or Pakistan or Assalamu alaikum. Honestly, I don't like being around immigrant brothers. They don't even return the greetings. I know a lot of you feel uncomfortable about this, but this is the conversations that go on. You can stop that right away by obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Us African Americans, we think you're racist or something. Maybe you just used to saying hi and hello, or saying it real low. We don't know, but in our mind, he racist, he didn't return a greeting. No, we can skip all that just by doing what Allah says. Wa alaikum assalam. Iyadatul marid, and visiting the sick. And visiting the sick, that's the second right that he said that the Muslims have on each other. You visit the sick. When one of us is sick, we should go visit. And nowadays we have hospitals and stuff, so there's all types of limits and all kinds of things like that. But we should get the word out. When somebody is sick, you visit the sick. He'll be all right. What if he's not all right? Well, to battle janazas and following the janazah, the funeral prayer. That's why we live in this situation. This is a slave culture. Sometimes for us to go visit the sick or for us to go to a janazah and follow, that might mean we might not be employed. We may lose a job by trying to give our brother their rights, our sister their rights. Well, I'm supposed to get janazah on Wednesday, I work. Oh man, well, I can't miss another day or I'm gonna get fired. So you don't give your brother his rights. We shouldn't be in a position like that. That's why we have to maneuver our situation where we have control over our situation best we can. Tabaul janazah, following the janazah. Wa ijabu da'wati, and responding to the invitation. Somebody invites you for dinner. Somebody invites you to a walima, an invitation. You're supposed to respond. If somebody kind enough, love you enough, respect you enough to invite you to their house or wherever they having a thing, at least you can do is respond. At least you can do is come. If you can't come, at least say you can't come. Don't just not show up. Somebody prepare food for you and everything, you don't show up. Well, tashmitul artist, and responding to the sneezing. When you sneeze, achoo, you say alhamdulillah. The person that hears it, yarhamukallah, may Allah have mercy upon you. That's the bare minimum. You can keep going on and on with it, but that's the bare minimum. These are rights we have on each other. Now, if a person sneezes 10 times, you ain't got to keep doing it. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. No, after 3 times, it's something else. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam spoke about it. But these are the 5 rights that we have. Let's start there by giving each other our rights, inshallah. We need to give each other our rights. Don't wait for somebody else to start. You start it. This is what we owe each other. Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen.
Imam Naeem Abdullah of Masjid Al-Mu'min and Nur Zaman Institute is available for speaking engagements. You can contact Imam Naeem Abdullah at the following: via telephone at 267-388-0823, or write him at 537 Paulson Avenue, Pittsburgh, PA 15206, or via email at imamnaeem@nurzamaninstitute.org.
Bismillah.